All right. Well, thank you again for joining us today. My name is Robin. I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy and Community Engagement in Northeast Ohio. AARP is excited to have you join us today for this really important conversation. We're dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to the more than 100 million Americans 50 plus and their families: health and financial security and personal fulfillment. No matter where you are on your health journey, AARP is here to provide scientifically backed tips and connect you with important resources. To learn more, visit aarp.org/healthy living. I'll drop the link in the chat in just a few moments, but again, it's aarp.org/healthy living. By joining us here today, you're one step closer to sparking new ideas that will help you on your own personal journey. We should have time at the end, like I had mentioned, to answer your questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. If you put them in the chat, I'll probably grab them, but Q&A button is where you want to put them. If we don't get to your questions or something comes up afterwards, you're always welcome to email us at ohaarp@aarp.org. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on AARP Ohio's YouTube channel in just a few days. And again, I will drop the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. Now let's get started. On a personal level, I could not be more thrilled to welcome you to our program today. As an outdoors person, I find comfort in being surrounded by nature and appreciate the physical and emotional benefits I gain from being in nature. I've even made it a goal to visit all of our national parks. Each park is celebrated for their unique features, natural beauty, and ecological significance, as well as their recreational value. Our webinar today is offered in collaboration with the Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley National Park and retired orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Joe Blanda. Kicking off our presentation from the Conservancy is Kimberly Lovano. Kimberly has served as a Community Engagement Director at the Conservancy since January 2023. In her role, Kimberly works to advance the Conservancy's community engagement programs, advocacy efforts, and volunteer initiatives. She is an avid visitor of the national parks and an advocate for the benefits of green space for both physical and mental well-being. Please join me in welcoming Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Robin, and hello, everyone. It is so nice to be with you all virtually today. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and get us started. So as Robin mentioned, we are joining from the Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley National Park. I'd love to get a feel from folks in the group. I know I saw a few of the locations that people are joining from. Has anyone been to Cuyahoga Valley National Park before? If you have, if you want to drop it in the chat. If you have not been to Cuyahoga Valley, I would love to hear what your favorite national park is, or if you live near a national park or a frequent visitor of any of our national parks. So for our Ohio folks, hopefully you have all been to Cuyahoga Valley, but what I wanted to do before we really jumped into talking more about all the health benefits that come from spending mindful time in nature is to talk about the Conservancy in Cuyahoga Valley and give this some more context. So why is a program like our Nature RX program, which I'll discuss, so important to the work of the Conservancy and to Cuyahoga Valley National Park? So most folks are aware of our national park system, which is run by the National Park Service. There are more than 430 National Park Service sites across our country. There are 63 national parks. There are monuments, historic places. I have two of my personal favorites you can find here on the right. Anyone want to guess what these are? You can drop it in the chat if you'd like to. So on the top right, we have Olympic National Park. Oh, Sequoia and Redwood, those are really close. So the bottom right is actually Muir Woods, which is a national monument, which is also part of our national park system. And as I mentioned, the top right is Olympic National Park. Those are two of the parks that I've been to over the past few years. And actually, the bottom right, Muir Woods, was before I started working for the Conservancy and where I first felt that sense of complete peace and calm from being in nature, being surrounded by something so quiet and so much older and just bigger than me, that sense of awe. And I know Dr. Blanda will be talking about that later in his presentation. But there are national parks all across our country. There are more than 85 million acres that have been protected for exploration, recreation, relaxation, conservation, all the Asians included in there. But our national park system invites more than 331 million visitors every year to take part in our national parks, to explore, to spend time there. And most folks don't realize how much of an economic benefit our National Park Service sites are. So they generate more than $56 billion annually in economic activity. So in addition to bringing people in and providing that sense of calm and peace and all of the health, mental and physical, spiritual health benefits that come from going to parks, when we go to visit a national park, of course, we stay nearby, we go to restaurants, shops, and we support local economies. So they're what we like to call gateway communities that are supported by our parks. And that is a really important piece of our national park system that is often overlooked. So Cuyahoga Valley National Park, for folks who have not been to Cuyahoga Valley before, we are Ohio's only national park. We are located in between the cities of Cleveland and Akron. So we're a very unique National Park Service site. Most national parks you'll find in a pretty remote area. So it's not normal that I live just down the street from our national park. I live 3 minutes from the border and my favorite trailhead. That is not something that most people can say unless they're a park ranger at one of our National Park Service sites. So in Northeast Ohio, we're very fortunate to be located in between two metro areas, and that was by design. So back in 1974, Cuyahoga Valley National Park became a park to people as part of the Nixon administration's Parks to People policy. And when we were established, the goal was, instead of having a park in a more remote area where people had to travel, we wanted to have a place for people to recreate and come from outside of those two more urban areas and outside of the suburbs and be able to be in nature, completely immersed in nature. But of course, this area has been lived in for a long time. For folks who are from Ohio, you know that the park is placed near and over already established cities, towns, and it's been lived in for about 13,000 years. Our park has a very modest budget, like most National Park Service sites. Our park doesn't have a gate, so when people come in, they come in and out of the park. A lot of folks drive through the park on a regular basis without even knowing that it is a national park that they're driving through. We have a budget of $12 million, but that really supports our local economy. So it supports 2,000 local jobs and generates over $200 million annually in economic impact. And even though we're a small national park compared to some of the larger parks that are over 1 million acres, we're only 33,000 acres, but we have nearly 3 million people that come and visit every year. And so we are the 12th most visited national park in the country. You'll find that we're a very local national park. You'll see the same people there again and again. But over 40% of our visitors now are from out of state and outside of Northeast Ohio. So we're starting to get to that point where we're getting more visitors. Now, the Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley National Park, we operate as the nonprofit friends group to Cuyahoga Valley. And for folks on this call who are from outside of Ohio and have other national parks that they love, they frequent and they visit, most national parks have a nonprofit friends group. So I included a QR code here that you can go to and check out to see if there's a national park friends group near you that supports your park. But essentially what friends groups do, since we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, we have a little bit more flexibility. So we're able to add capacity to our friends at the National Park Service and to the park that we support. So we do joint community outreach. We often offer public programs in partnership with our friends at the park. For our park at the Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley, we co-manage the volunteer office. So we have more than 4,000 people who come in every year. They help us plant trees, pull invasive plants. They help us greet people when they come to the visitor center and just add capacity to our very limited staff that's here at Cuyahoga Valley. But there's also ways that we support the park that they cannot. So places that their hands are tied. Of course, being a government entity, the Park Service cannot fundraise, they cannot advocate and lobby on their own behalf. But as the 501c3 nonprofit, we are able to lobby on behalf of the park. We go down to DC and Columbus and talk to our elected officials about the importance of parks. And we also raise dollars. So on the left-hand side of this slide is a photo of our Boston Mill Visitor Center, which was built back in 2019. And that visitor center was built thanks to the Conservancy and all of the wonderful folks who donated to make this happen. So it was almost entirely private philanthropy that built our visitor center. Almost $8 million went into that. And that is the role that a lot of these friends groups play. They take advantage of the fact that so many people love our national parks, and when they can't fill the gaps, we're able to step in and help. So as I mentioned, public programming is a really key piece of what we do. And that has been something over the past few years that's become even more important to our national park. Our national park has seen a slowly eroding budget. And so that means that they focus more and more on those essential services. Keeping the public safe and healthy is at the core of what their mission is as a National Park Service site. And when the Conservancy comes in, we want to give folks that visitor experience. We want to bring people to the park. We want to reach audiences that haven't always been able to access our national park, whether it's because of transportation, safety, or a long list of other reasons why they're not able to come and enjoy our national park. So one of the really key pieces of that public programming and outreach that we do is our nature prescription program. And that program has been done thanks to a partnership and really leadership of Dr. Joe Blanda, who's on this call. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes about our Nature RX program. And then Dr. Joe Blanda is going to discuss all of the health benefits that come from spending mindful time in nature. So our Nature RX program is about a year and a half old. So it's still in its infancy stages. But the goal of this program is to improve the health and well-being of our community through programming that utilizes the positive health benefits that come from spending mindful time in nature. We do this in a handful of ways. And mostly the most popular way that we have seen is through provider-led programs, which I'll talk about in a moment. But we have a hub. It's an online web page where people can find free resources as well as a list of provider-led programs that are being hosted at Cuyahoga Valley National Park and at some of our local park systems. Since I mentioned earlier that we're located in between the cities of Cleveland and Akron, we also host some of our programs within the city of Akron to reach more audiences at some of our community centers, at some of our city of Akron local parks. So Dr. Blanda has hosted some of our programs there. And we keep a running list of all of those events that people can visit and find out more. So when it comes to our provider-led programs, we've been really fortunate to work with a group of folks who are serving as our Nature RX providers. So I will be the first to admit I am not a healthcare professional. I do not have a background in healthcare, but I do know that when I go outside, when I spend time on the trails, when I used to drive home from my job, and that was on the east side of Cleveland, as I would drive home and drive through the park, I could feel my blood pressure going down. I could feel myself just having more of a sense of calm as I was on my commute home. I could tell, and folks can't see, but I'm in the city of Akron. So I live in Akron. I'm looking out my window and I see a ton of pin oak trees, clouds, and I just feel that sense of calm when I'm in and near nature. And I know that that's the feeling that most of us have. And the more I talked to Dr. Blanda, the more I realized that this is a feeling that a lot of us do have, and there's so much evidence that backs that up. So much research has gone into this. So Dr. Blanda and a team of folks, we have a mental health therapist, a general practitioner, a manager of whole health operations, and a Summit County Master Gardener and social worker who have helped us develop this program and make sure that it stays evidence-based and rooted in all of the latest academic research that comes out, so that folks get this experience of all the health benefits that come from spending mindful time in nature. We've had so many different programs. We've had over 40 programs since its inception in May of 2024. We've reached more than 1,000 people who have attended these programs. Most of these programs have been in person. Our most popular program to date is our mindfulness walks. So we lead folks on a 1 mile walk at most. Sometimes we'll go as little as just a quarter of a mile of a walk, and that's the standard practice, but up to a mile based on the group. And we'll go through a sensory immersion of how they can spend mindful time in nature. We were really grateful and excited to do a partnership with AARP Ohio, started in July of this year, where we brought folks to different spots in Cuyahoga Valley National Park and did a series of mindfulness walks. We still have one more in October. If you go to our website, you'll see that on there for any of our locals. But the good news is for everyone, it is really easy to do a mindfulness walk in your own neighborhood park. You could even go in your backyard and sit and have some sense of mindfulness. And I know Dr. Blanda will be talking about that a little bit more. But outside of just taking walks and going on hikes and through trails, we know that spending mindful time in nature has an impact on us outside of just that mobile movement. So gardening programs have been a really key piece of our Nature RX program. On the bottom left picture, you could see we have a partnership with our local county, Summit County Master Gardeners, and they do a series of gardening programs with us and for us. So they talk about all of the health benefits that come from spending time gardening, getting your hands in the soil. I'm sure there's folks on here who are gardeners. I am one of them. I'm definitely a novice at gardening. I'm not that great, and I've actually been neglecting my garden a bit this year in the drought. But spending mindful time gardening is so good for our health. The top left corner you'll see is one of our fireside programs. We did a nature journaling program with Dr. Blanda actually hosted that, and folks were able to go on a quick 15-20 minute walk outside and then come back into a nice cozy environment and journal about what they saw, how they felt while they were on that walk, spending time in nature. We've done outdoor and indoor yoga programs. That's one of the photos you'll see on the bottom right-hand corner there. During the warmer months, we'll do evening campfires outside. During the colder months, we've done campfires indoors. We've done grounding sessions. And one area that we did not quite expect that has really been growing is our women's programming. So we have found that a lot of the folks who are coming to our programs have been women. And we have hosted a series of women-specific programming. We had our first women's retreat that was really popular just a couple of months ago, where we did a whole host of all of these different pieces and parts: mindfulness walks, forest bathing, nature photography, nature journaling, all in one. So that was really exciting for me. I know people really seem to respond to that. And of course, incorporating the arts into the work that we do, and taking advantage of all of the health benefits that come from the arts and spending time doing the arts in nature. So these are some of the programs that we've done so far. As I've mentioned, we've done more than 40 programs as a part of our Nature RX series. And so the list goes on and on, but these are the ones that we've probably gotten the best feedback from our participants on. The good news is you don't have to come out to one of our programs in order to spend mindful time in nature. Accessibility is a real issue, especially in Northeast Ohio, where we don't have reliable public transit that comes to the park. So what we've done is put some free online resources on our webpage. I know Robin is going to drop the Nature RX webpage in the chat, but I've also included the QR code here if anyone wants to scan that and take a look. On our webpage, you'll find, if you're from this area, some walking and hiking suggestions, but there are a host of other resources that you can find on the webpage. There's a link to a mindful gardening podcast, which is really a really good listen if you have a few minutes. Resources from our partners in Master Gardeners. Dr. Blanda and I put together a whole video on how to bring nature indoors, whether it's because you're just trying to create your own indoor naturescape. Maybe it's too hot outside, too cold outside, depending on where you live, and you just need to bring nature inside to where you are. It's a really great way to start to create your own indoor nature space. We have some ideas for how to connect the arts with nature, and then some birding techniques. If there's anyone else on this call who loves birds as much as I do, then I really highly suggest checking out the Mindful Birding Network. You can get there through our Nature RX webpage. But just some suggestions to enjoy the birds rather than trying to always identify. If you're like me, you like to know exactly what's making a call, what bird just flew past your window, but just taking the time to watch a bird go from tree to tree, shrub to shrub, and that can be so powerful for our mental and physical health. Now, one big piece of our program that I wanted to end on that we rely on for Nature RX, this program has been largely successful thanks to a partnership with our local hospital systems and providers who are helping to get the word out. So we actually have a nature prescription that goes out to our local hospital systems. And you can see on the left here is an example of what our nature prescription looks like. It is really simple. The best news is we always say you can self-prescribe yourself nature. You can go outside at any point. You can just sit in your own backyard. You can watch the clouds from your window. But what we're trying to do essentially is get our providers to talk to their patients about spending time in nature. And I know Dr. Blanda will be talking about that a bit more. We also have flyers that go out, which are on the right. We're integrated with our local United Way 211 network, which is kind of a first response network for people who are looking for services, health and human services, provider services, emergency services. So if someone calls and they're looking for a service around parks or around health and wellness, this is one of the services that they can find out more about. So they'll be directed right to our website. I will say, after doing this program for about a year and a half, one of the biggest findings for us has been that word of mouth is the way that we get more and more people out to our programs. We tend to get a sense of community, so we get people who come out repeatedly. And so we've kind of created this tight-knit group of folks who are just really interested in spending mindful time in nature together, which has been a real fun benefit for me, getting to go to all of these programs and get to know folks. But we've also just had people who come one-off and they want to learn more. They want to know, what is a mindfulness walk? What is forest bathing? What's mindful birding? What is mindful nature journaling? So that has been one of the highlights for me personally of doing this program. And of course, getting to work with Dr. Blanda and the other advisors who have made this program a success. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Robin and get us more information from Dr. Blanda.
Kimberly, thank you so much. That was fascinating. And I love the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. And so not only appreciate all that you do to educate and connect the community with nature, but also for joining us today. It's truly been an honor partnering with you, not only on this presentation, but also on the mindfulness walk. So I look forward to continued collaboration. Now it's my extreme pleasure to introduce Dr. Joe Blanda. Dr. Blanda is a retired orthopedic surgeon who practiced in Akron, Ohio for 35 years. Currently, his passion is for the health benefits of nature, provide an opportunity to give presentations and lead walks at conservation organizations and cancer centers throughout the country. Dr. Blanda has and continues to serve on numerous boards, including Conservancy, where he's an active member of the Education Committee for the Cuyahoga Valley Environmental Education Center. Dr. Blanda helped initiate the development of the Nature RX program with the Conservancy, where he continues to help plan and lead programs. Keenly aware of the importance of well-being to ease the aging process, you can often find Dr. Blanda immersing his senses in nature, in his garden, or on one of the many wonderful trails of the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Dr. Blanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Robin. Let me get situated here. And it's a real honor to address an audience that's like myself, aiming to age gracefully. And and I'm here, my goal here for the next 20 minutes is to give you some ideas on how to do that by incorporating nature. And so I'll get started here. And, so why me? Well, like you, I'm aging and I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to gain more knowledge from, on this aging gracefully concept. I've become an avid student of wellness. I read about it, uh, through all my training. I read about it now almost every day, and I practice it daily, whether that's through proper nutrition or getting enough movement or green resistance band exercises outside, um, aiming for better sleep. I just love finding different ways to take care of my health and my brain um, through spending mindful time out in nature. So, there's this concept of the mind-body connection. And as an orthopedic surgeon for 35 years, I recognize the importance of emotional balance. I would have some patients that were distracted, anxious, maybe depressed, and they just didn't recover as well. Uh, and so I sometimes used a nature prescription and recommendation to spend more time sitting out in the park or pulling up to a parking lot in a nearby park and rolling down your window and take in some nature. Um, and today I don't have to remind anybody that these are challenging times. This is a tough time in our history to go through the aging process. Most of us, including me, could use more restorative sensory immersions with natural elements and try to put away our screens and our worries and the hectic bad news. So there are research studies that show that between 50 to 80% of our awake moments are made up of negative rumination, chaotic thoughts, worries about the to-do list, and maybe even yesterday's bad news. And this can affect the way we function, the way we sleep. It affects our brain's ability to recover and renourish. It upsets our emotional balance. Our brains need calm, peaceful periods of time for that rejuvenation and nourishment so that we can maintain or even improve our mental and physical health. And mindful time in nature can provide that. So, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present and engaged in the current moment. Be aware of your thoughts, feelings, and surroundings without judgment. It involves observing experiences as they occur, fostering a sense of calm and clarity, and promoting emotional regulation and resilience. And I bet most all of you are active with mindfulness-based activities, whether that's going to church or listening to music or having your dog on your lap, petting your dog. Um, and so my goal here today is to show you how to use nature as a healthy mindfulness activity. So mindfulness activities result in a calm, peaceful state that allows for that nourishment and rejuvenation of our brains. And really this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect with our inner emotions, connect with other people, and connect with ourselves through connecting with nature. Now, our bodies, let me remind you how our mind and our bodies are so closely interconnected with all of our organ systems. So when something adversely or stressful affects our brain, some or many of our organ systems can be adversely affected also. Chronic stress. Our brains get overstimulated, whether by too much screen time or lack of good quality sleep, maybe not getting outside enough, or just like being addicted to busyness like I once was. This can upset some of our body functions and our overall wellness. So, you know, In some instances, you may go through a period of your life when you're stressed and you find yourself catching colds more often, or some of my patients in that state wouldn't heal from their surgery as quickly. So when our brains are exhausted and under stress, our flight and fight response is overtaken by the autonomic nervous system. And this triggers some physiologic changes in our bodies that, we kind of perceive things as a threat, and our bodies want to confront it or flee. And our responses are, increased heart rate, heightened alertness, and release of those stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol that affect our brains. So in chronic stress situations, it's difficult to function at your best. When under stress, the neurotransmitters, those are the communication pathways between our brain and our organ systems. They become overstimulated and they malfunction. It's kind of like a train that's going too fast down the track. That train can be more likely to derail. So as opposed to that, there are benefits from mindful time in nature where less stress hormones have been recorded. More calming hormones are documented. Healthy neurotransmitters are released when we are mindfully immersed in nature. Our cardiovascular system functions better. Our blood pressure lowers. And most importantly is there's less inflammatory markers in our body, and inflammation is involved with every disorder we get, including dementia. And so on the other hand, what are the health benefits of nature? Well, we've all experienced a well-being and happiness. We know it decreases depression and anxiety. But it's also interesting to know that people who spend more time outdoors, less chance of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and these are the real important ones. Spending mindful time in nature has been documented in several research studies to show that your brain is more alert, your cognition is better. And again, that's related to that decrease in inflammation. And the other interesting one is that when you're spending mindful time in nature, you have a markedly increased number of natural killer cells in your body. These are the B lymphocytes that fight infection and cancer. And when you spend 20 minutes out in nature and those levels of natural killer cells are elevated, that effect can last up to a month in a person. So when you were walking the parks during COVID, you were really doing yourself a favor. So, awareness and how-to information about nature therapy is much more easily accessible. Kimmy mentioned it's on our website. There's good resources there. Robin will put that in the chat. There's close to 1,000 academic medical articles that are published that support the health benefits of nature. And so how can you utilize this knowledge? Basically, you want to calm your mind and open up your five senses to the natural beauty that you immerse yourself in. And there are 4 easy steps to do that. And we're going to go through that. I'm going to first talk about these 4 easy steps, and then I'm going to lead us on a real short virtual mindfulness immersion. These steps can take as little as 20 minutes. And in fact, there's some research now that show even 2 minutes of a microdose of nature can be healthy. An example of that would be if you're taking a break, you walk past a window, pause and look out at the tree or the clouds. Step out onto your back deck and feel the breeze and watch the multicolored leaves swirl down to the ground this fall. Got to set aside that time. So what are these 4 steps? Well, the first step in starting this practice is to have the self-compassion to carve out time for self-care into your busy schedule. We need to grant ourselves the time to take care of ourselves, whether it's through proper nutrition, movement, sleep, or brain health. Allow some of this self-care time to be a sensory immersion in nature. That's one of the most enjoyable, healthy things I do. Easily accessible, It's safe and it's free. The second step is to find a place where you can immerse your senses in a calm and quiet setting. Maybe you have access to some nearby green space, or maybe it's your back deck. Or I'll talk about it briefly, and it'll be put in the chat, how to create your indoor naturescape, how to bring nature indoors, especially for bad weather days. And all these can work the same. And so, a healthy immersion can easily be done during a walk with your friends if you agree to set aside 10 or 20 minutes for quiet time, perhaps sitting near a babbling brook or leaning against a majestic tree. Your walking trails or sit spots don't have to be in a beautiful national park. Maybe it's sitting near a window and looking out at bird feeders. Recent study in Europe, fascinating study. 20,000 people were followed for several years, and they found that people who lived where they could hear birds not only were healthier, but they actually lived longer. And so again, if you're living in the inner city, you can watch David Attenborough Planet Earth videos about birds and nature. So many ways to do that. Set up a bird feeder outside your window. Attach a baby monitor to it, and you can bring the sounds indoors if you want to hear the birds chirping. So the indoor naturescape, you can create this that can touch all of your senses. And I used to actually recommend to my patients to bring a diffuser with lavender essential oil and some peaceful, calming videos either on their smartphone, and bring it to them to the hospital when they were about to go through surgery. Again, there'll be a link in the chat on how to create your own indoor naturescape. Now, the third step is calming your mind by being quiet and focusing on your breathing, doing a body scan, and just calming your mind so that your senses can be more aware of the natural beauty around you. And that's the fourth and last step, to immerse your senses. When you see a beautiful scene, you're hearing a soothing sound, you're feeling a cool breeze. So that's kind of the four steps in a nutshell. And so let's try it. Let's go through this quickly. And let's start by bringing your attention to your present moment. You're looking at the screen, and I invite you to focus on your breathing. Let's do box breathing. You breathe in slowly for 4 seconds as your stomach expands, and you hold it for 4 seconds. And then you breathe out slowly through your mouth for 4-second count, and you pause for 4 seconds. And you repeat that. And as you're repeating that slow box breathing, do a brief body scan and let your jaws, the muscles in your jaws relax. Let the muscles in your shoulders relax. Let the tension in your arms trickle out through your fingertips. And when your mind wanders, focus on the breathing. Feel the air pass through your nostrils. And let's next invite your eyes to notice the butterfly. Let your awareness be drawn to the calming color, the soothing patterns, and the relaxing shape of this spectacular creature. Do you notice any emotional response? Let your eyes drift down onto the flower, discovering the fine detail. Notice how you feel. Perhaps this image brings joy and happiness. It reminds me of the circle of life and how this resilient little creature flies up here from Ohio, or from Mexico to Ohio, and in that trip goes through a spectacular metamorphosis from caterpillar to chrysalis 3 or 4 times. That's a reminder of the circle of life for me. And each time I see a monarch butterfly, it's a moment of awe, a reminder of resilience and perseverance. It's such a wonderful connection to nature, to my inner emotion. Next, let your attention be drawn to this beautiful bird. Picture one of the calming, soothing bird songs that you've heard out in nature. And just like for our prehistoric ancestors who relied on bird sound to let them know that there were no predators nearby, hearing bird song is very calming for us. Maybe focus on your breath again if you find your mind wandering, and connect with your inner feelings and emotions as you continue to enjoy these sights from nature. Notice the majestic tree. And do you get any emotional feelings? For me, I notice the massive trunk and its age-old root system signifying strength, resilience, and maybe the many storms that it has survived in its life. And from this, I'm reminded of how nature is so resilient. I recognize how giving this tree can be, as we now know that it shares its nutrients and disease-fighting chemicals with younger and less fortunate trees in its vicinity, even shares with trees of a different species. Nature reciprocates by helping us heal if we let it do that. Again, notice how you feel from the setting that you're in. These calming moments in nature can stimulate a deeper love of nature, an opportunity to develop a deeper love of all living beings around us. There can be invitations from nature to stimulate gratitude in us as we immerse ourselves in natural elements and appreciate how it benefits our own health. These moments of awe and wonder may invite us to practice reciprocity and think of creative ways how we can give back. Perhaps by inviting a friend to join you on your next sensory immersion with nature. Maybe you will be moved to volunteer at your local friends group, or think of other ways to help conserve the green space that we have left. Perhaps the gratitude and reciprocity generated by these healthy experiences will encourage you to let your voice be heard to help save our natural world for our grandchildren. We're learning more and more that nature can help us heal, and in return, we have the opportunity to help nature heal. So in conclusion, allow yourself time to use natural elements to connect with other living beings, maybe trees, butterflies, or your pet, and also to connect with your inner emotions, to experience a deeper love for natural elements. And in these challenging times, it's easy to get overwhelmed and shut down. Yet it is more important than ever to keep our hearts and minds open to the beauty in the natural world. Like wind-blown seeds, love sows more love. Whether it's wildflowers along the roadside, or that oak tree outside our window, or maybe it's that four-legged companion. The more we feel and express love, the greater our capacity for love will be. Nourishing our innate love for nature inspires us to treat the earth, all of her creatures, and each other with more care and respect. This just may be the key to restoring peace and balance in our lives and in the world. And so, put simply, allowing ourselves to love this earth through peaceful sensory experiences is one of the most powerful things we can do for our health, our souls, and the health of our planet. So thank you for your attention, and start thinking about and planning your next outing with nature. Any questions or comments, go ahead and just add those to the chat.
Dr. Blanda, thank you so much. That was phenomenal. I feel so much more at peace and at ease, not only by looking at the photos that you shared, but also by your soothing tone. It really I feel so much happier right now, and I can't wait. I can't wait to get outside and immerse myself in nature. So I do have a couple of um, resources that I've dropped in the chat. There are a few more, but I don't want to let this moment pass without sharing with everybody a link to Nature Can Heal. And I believe this is going to take you, Kimmy, I'm not sure if you want to share to a website or to Dr. Blanda's book. So I do want to make sure to point everybody in the webinar to that direction. No questions yet have come through the Q&A. So I guess my question I can throw off the top of my head is, what has been your most sort of memorable experience in leading some of these experiences? If either of you want to take that. I know off the cuff, it's going to be hard, but
Well, I've had quite a few. I lead a lot of walks at cancer centers, and I think of one instance. I was in southern Utah, near a Navajo Indian reservation, and there was a cancer center in this small village, and about 8 or 9 women that were battling cancer came on a walk. And boy, did I learn a lot. Um, we ended up just kind of sharing our love of nature, and they had me sniffing plants, and sharing how they take care of themselves. And so it was just very touching to think that that it's ingrained in us. We all kind of have this genetically ingrained urge to be out in nature.
excellent. I really appreciate that. I think the other thing that's really important to me is when I attended the first Nature RX mindfulness walk with the Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley National Park, I was struck by just how slowing down and listening to those around you to hear from their experience. Like, I truck, I go through the woods, and I'm on a mission. I do it for exercise, but taking the time to stop and to really check in with your senses, and the breathing that you had mentioned is truly transformative. So I thank you. Kimberly, I don't know if you have anything else that you want to share.
I my favorite moment so far of our Nature RX program, we actually had our first family-friendly program through Nature RX a few weeks ago, and getting to see so many parents share with their kids and grandkids. We had multi-generations there, which was really cool and really powerful. But getting to see parents share their love of nature, and we did a mindfulness yoga practice. We did some nature crafts, doing art outside. But the best part was we had all this structure and all this programming, and we found that the kids just wanted to lay on the grass, smell the trees, look at the flowers. And it was just eye-opening to me how much kids are really in tune with nature and with the ways that they can spend time outside and be mindful. And I feel like adults really need to take a page out of their book. Sometimes I just look and I watch my kids spend time outside, and it's like they know exactly how to do it. And sometimes as adults, I think we forget how simple it can be, of just smelling the flowers and feeling a leaf, feeling grass, laying on the ground, taking off our shoes. So I think that's been my most powerful moment so far of this program. That was really neat.
That's fantastic. We do have a question. Shelley said, Dr. Blanda, you mentioned lavender essential oils. Are there other scents that you would recommend?
Yes. So the interesting history of forest bathing, which is just another word for nature therapy, started in Japan, late 1970s. A medical student at a clinic, poor Kimmy's heard this story 10 times. A medical student was working at a clinic near a mountainside, and there was a large group of monks who came in once a year for their blood work, and they were perfectly healthy. These were portly, 70, 80-year-old monks who never had any medical conditions. So the medical student decided to do a little research study. He went and visited their monastery and found that the monastery was surrounded by age-old hemlock trees.
Mm.
So he put two and two together and started doing research on the, what happens to our bodies when you are sniffing pine. So since then, about 20 different research studies have been published on the health benefits of using your olfactory sense, your sense of smell, in sniffing pine. So you can buy the tree in Japan was a Hanaki tree, which is very similar to our hemlock. You can buy Hanaki oil on Amazon, or you can get pine oil locally. So the other one that there's several that have been shown to be healthy, but the thing to realize is when you're walking out in nature, you don't necessarily pick up the scent, but you are breathing in those
Mm.
natural chemicals that cause these reactions in your body to lower your stress hormones, to increase your natural killer cells, decrease your inflammation. So don't feel like you have to constantly be sniffing essential oils. Just being outdoors, you're taking in those chemicals. And Kimmy's heard me on some of my walks where I will tell people what I was taught by one of the guides on one of the first trips that I took. When you're out in nature, take some time and sniff like a dog. Why do you think dogs like to sniff so much? There's something good about that. So, if you find a wildflower or a branch or a twig or a pine, rub your fingers and take a good whiff.
That's awesome. I wonder if that's similar to what Rose shared in the chat, that her journey to nature was not deliberate, but she just happened to check in with herself and notice that when she was in nature, she felt so much calmer. So that happy accident, if you will. Well, I don't see any other questions that are coming in the chat. I do want to remind folks who are still on the call with us that this call was recorded and it will be posted to the AARP Ohio YouTube channel. Additionally, if you have questions or want to connect with Dr. Blanda or Kimberly after this, you're always welcome to email us at ohaarp@aarp.org and we'll get you connected in the right place. So I did drop the link to our YouTube channel. Before we do say goodbye, thank you again so much, Kimberly and Dr. Blanda. It's been such a great presentation. And I did want to let you all know that we do have one more webinar for AARP coming up at 3 p.m. on November 20th. This is the fourth of a four-part series on nutrition led by retired dietitian Jane Korsberg. Jane will introduce tips and strategies for managing your diet in the prevention or management of prediabetes and diabetes. Again, I'll drop the link to register in the chat. Thank you again, Dr. Blanda and Kimberly, and to all of you for joining us here this evening. I hope you can spend some time getting out in nature, being mindful and thoughtful, and just checking in and remembering just how fortunate we are really to be surrounded by nature everywhere. And I'm excited to bring nature indoors as we face the imminent winters of Northeast Ohio. So thank you all again. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.